He flexed his muscles. He was a ridiculous show-off. But Hera had to admit he was buff. She shook her head. How can I convince you that you're wasting your time? You can't. I love you. She snorted. You love anything in a dress. This is different. You're the right goddess. I know it. You do too. Just say I love you. You can do it. You'll feel better if you're honest. Never, she said. I will never tell you that. Ever. Ooh, that sounds like a challenge. Zeus grinned. If I can get you to admit that you love me, will you marry me? Hera rolled her eyes. Sure, Zeus. Since that will never happen, I can safely say that if I ever admitted to you, what you said, then sure, I'd marry you. Which I can only promise because it will never happen. Zeus winked. Challenge accepted. He left the dinner table, and Hera began wondering if she'd somehow made a mistake. A few nights later, Hera had almost forgotten about the conversation. Strangely, Zeus had not mentioned it again. In fact, he hadn't paid much attention to her at all since that night, which should have filled her with relief, but somehow it bummed her out. Forget him, she told herself. He finally got the message. He's probably accosting some other poor goddess. She tried to convince herself that this was good news. She wasn't jealous. That would be ridiculous. During the night, a huge thunderstorm raged over Mount Olympus, which probably should have made Hera suspicious, since Zeus was the god of the sky, but she was too busy covering her windows to keep out the rain. She ran to her bedroom and was just closing the last shutters when a small bird fluttered in and collapsed, exhausted, on her floor. Yikes! Hera stepped back in alarm. How did you get in here? The bird flapped helplessly on the marble tiles. Its chest heaved, its whole body shivering from the cold. Hera knelt down and saw it was a cuckoo. Have you ever seen an actual cuckoo bird? Not the carved ones that pop out of old clocks. I haven't. I had to look it up. It's a weird little guy. It's sort of a mohawk thing going on with its head feathers, which doesn't match its sleek brown and white wings or its long tail. Basically, it looks like its head got zapped in some scientist's device, so I can see why cuckoo became another word for crazy. Anyway, Hera knelt down and scooped up the bird. She could feel its heart beating against her palm. One of its wings was bent the wrong way. Hera didn't understand how such a small bird could have flown all the way up to Mount Olympus. Usually only eagles flew that high, since the airspace around Olympus was restricted. On the other hand, Hera knew that storms had powerful winds. Possibly the poor bird just got swept away. It's a miracle you're alive, Hera told the bird. Don't worry, little guy. I'll take care of you. She made a nest of blankets at the foot of her bed and gently set the bird inside. She dried its wings and fed it a few drops of nectar, which seemed to help. The cuckoo puffed up its feathers. It closed its eyes and started to make whistling, snoring noises, like soft notes played on a flute. Hera found the sound pleasing. I'll just keep him overnight, she said to herself. She decided it was a boy. If he's better in the morning, I'll send him on his way. In the morning, the cuckoo made no attempt to fly away. He sat contentedly on Hera's finger, eating pieces of seed and nut on her hand. Hera had never had a pet before, and it made her smile. You're a good friend, aren't you? She murmured to the bird. Coo, said the cuckoo. Hera's heart warmed when she looked into his trusting orange eyes. Should I keep you? Coo. The cuckoo rubbed its beak on her finger in an unmistakably affectionate way. Hera laughed in delight. All right then, yes, I love you too. Instantly the cuckoo hopped on the floor. It began to grow. At first Hera was afraid that she'd fed him too much nectar and the bird was going to explode, which would have been both distressing and messy. Instead, the bird took on the form of a god. Suddenly Zeus was standing before her in his glowing white robes, his golden crown gleaming in his black hair, which was still mussed up from being in cuckoo-style hairdo. Sweet words, my lady, Zeus said. I love you too. Now, I believe you and I had a deal.